So I forgot to send my bio to Carrie to introduce me, but it's okay because I kind of put it in here. So I just wanted to let you know who I am. Well, I'm married to Steve, who came along for moral support tonight. He's the tall guy back here. And I was thinking I should have invited some of our Weiser friends and volunteers who have worked on the project, but to be honest, I was feeling a little self-conscious and I didn't think I really wanted one of them here. So I'll just have to share PowerPoint later, I guess. We don't have children to speak of except for our little dog Una, who we're pretty happy with. We just got her last December, and I'm going to mention this later, but we have a place up on the Selway River, and you might recognize this picture. Whoopsie. Okay. I'm just going to talk about it because it's a little touchy, evidently. So the picture with Steve and I is Canyon Creek. So if you went to the annual conference in 2022, you went on a field trip there and looked at some of the coastal disjunct plants. And Una is a little rafting dog. We enjoy rafting on the Locksaw and Clearwater and wherever we can. So who am I besides being very pretty, right? This is from one of my students. I was a public school teacher in Ontario for 36 years before I retired 7 years ago. Thank you. I earned that, all of it. So I was classroom teacher. I think this came from one of my first grade students, probably. College of Idaho graduate. As Carrie mentioned, I was born and raised in Weiser, kind of boring. But I love it there. And my husband stays because I'm there. He loves the Selway a little more, I think. So who am I? Well, I'm a science and math workshop junkie, or I was at least before I retired. Believer in community service and interested in plant identification. So the picture on the bottom is me with a group of students. We worked with the, it's Serve Day. And by the way, since I taught in Oregon, that was, or in Ontario, that was an Oregon school. And in Oregon, they called it Project Solve. Stop Oregon litter and vandalism, I think was something like that. So anyway, we went to a local pond and we worked on identifying weeds that were around the pond besides picking up litter and things. So I enjoyed using the dichotomous key with students because it related to a lot of other things that I was trying to teach. So who am I? Also, I'm a preservationist and a depot steward. This is our house there in Weiser on the right. And on the left is my husband's building. He had Ace Hardware there in Weiser. And you can see from the sign in the windows that he is now retired also. So I don't know how many of you have been to Weiser, but we are kind of known for our historic homes and buildings, or at least that's what people remark on when they come and visit.
Fiddle Festival.
And Fiddle Festival, yes, we're proud of the Fiddle Festival too. It's not quite as big of an event as it used to be, but there's still a lot of great music. And by the way, if you don't know this, now they have kind of attached banjo camp to be in conjunction with Fiddle Festival. So that's kind of like the weekend before, or like a few days before Fiddle Festival starts. And then Fiddle Festival is a full week, third full week in June. Okay, so I'm a member of Weiser Architectural Preservation Committee, which is actually the group that kind of sponsored me in working on this grant, or they have supported me they paid for things until I got reimbursed by the grant, for example. Besides all the volunteering that they did. Okay, I mentioned earlier that we have a home on the Selway River. And we became friends with Steve Bunting and Penny Morgan through a teacher's rafting trip in the beginning. And then we've just remained friends since then. They might be watching tonight. I'm not sure. They said that they were going to tune in. But because of Penny and Steve, we became members of INPS. And I wanted to point that out because I know as a teacher, I would have to remind myself that there are just really tiny examples or things that happen that we think don't really make a difference, but they do. So I want you to remember as a group that it just sometimes takes, an introduction with a person that can really start the snowball rolling, and you're not really sure where things will end up. So I just wanted to point that out, I guess. So this picture on the left there, that's one of the places that we scouted with them. It's Packer Meadow up along Highway 12, along the Lochsaw River, closer to Lolo Pass. Okay, and I just mentioned that I joined INPS because of the friendships that I had. And like I said earlier, I'm kind of a workshop junkie. So I also think that's something that elementary teachers are, I don't know if you'd say guilty of. I think it's kind of a good trait because we are just interested in everything, because we had to teach everything. And so something new comes along, I'm ready to jump on the bandwagon oftentimes. And I have to say thank you to a couple people who are here tonight. You can see Vicky in the picture here, and Anna is here tonight. They both encouraged me during these field trips to write an application for Eric. And like I said, just took, that little conversation to get this whole thing rolling. And I should also mention Penny Morgan, it encouraged me also. So between those few little comments, something big has happened for Weiser. Okay, I wanted to give you just a little bit of background about the depot. Because I think it's important for you to understand why the depot is so important to our community. So the picture on the right actually came from a brochure that we came across. This brochure was developed by Union Pacific for some of their stops along the way. They wanted to encourage people to move to these communities. So it's really fun to read the text. You probably can't read it from there, but if you get a chance to look at one of these brochures, they're kind of funny how the language is real flowery and it makes it all sound like Nirvana, just to come to Weiser Valley. But that picture is of the depot. So it was a new building. It was built in 1907. So in the photo there, it's just a couple years old. And again, on the left, just that's a picture that I came across. I think either one of my friends had a historic postcard or it might have come from the museum. The picture on the left is looking at the depot from the track side, so from the back side of the depot. Oh, and I wanted to mention, you might have read this in one of the bullets there. It was nearly demolished by Union Pacific in 1985. As a matter of fact, they did demolish the depot in Payette. As is typical of these depots, the railroad had the same blueprint that they used in several communities. So our depot is the same as the depot in Caldwell, in Nampa, and it was the same as the one that they had in Payette. And I guess there's one in Brigham City and possibly other places too. So fortunately, our group had just begun the Weiser Architectural Preservation Committee because we lost a couple other buildings downtown. We lost what was called the Washington Hotel, which was a huge loss for Weiser. That was a beautiful structure that unfortunately burned and was beyond saving. So we don't have that building anymore. A group of people got together. This was a little before my time and Steve's time. But they were kind of ready then when UP wanted to demolish the Weiser Depot, and were able to negotiate with UP and kind of talk them into leaving the depot there for the community to use. And eventually, a couple of years later, after negotiations, UP donated the building to our group, the Preservation Committee. So now we are in charge of taking care of the building, which is good in some ways, but it's a burden, as you can imagine, in some ways too. UP still owns the land and we lease the land from them, but we do own the building. I just added these pictures because we had a little celebration in 2007 to celebrate the depot's centennial. And as you can see from the picture, we have a lot of people that are thankful that the depot is still there in our community. If you've ever been to Weiser, you know it's not very big downtown. There aren't a whole lot of buildings. And so if we would have lost this building, it would have left a big hole. We were really fortunate to be beneficiaries of a couple of grants. They got some grants mostly through the transportation department. And so we were able to get new curbs and gutters, brick pavers, all in front of the building, new lighting. The same through all of downtown, but they included the depot in that project. And then a few years later, we were able to get another grant and we were able to fix up the building itself. So you can see in the bottom picture, we have a new roof. Inside we have new heating, air conditioning. The inside had been painted over, and so that was stripped off, and now we see all the beautiful old wood inside the depot, and it has become a really wonderful place for the community to come. Our group rents it out for events like wedding receptions, graduation parties, things like that. So over the years, so that we got the building in 1988. We went through a few phases of landscaping. And you can tell in the bottom picture that the landscaping was getting to look a little rough. And so we had a couple of shots in the arm to get the landscaping rejuvenated. I'm sure that you will all be dismayed to learn, though, that most of the plants that we bought were thirsty ornamentals. We were not enlightened at the time that we were choosing plants, I'm afraid. Since then, like I said, we have tried to rejuvenate our landscaping again. We had a fellow come to town who was real big on gardening, and so he kind of resurrected our Weiser Garden Club. This was in 2019, and they decided to take on the depot as one of their projects. Our group gave quite a bit of money to buy new plants, but it really spruced up the whole grounds, and everything was looking good. But some of us felt like we were a little disjunct in the way that we were planning or not planning. It just felt like we were just kind of, oh, that's a nice looking plant. This is, just put it wherever. So we put a committee together and tried to be a little more thoughtful about what we were planting and where we were planting and how it was going to be maintained in the future. And through some of those discussions, several people expressed an interest in trying to get more pollinators and or native plants. And about this time was when I had come on board to the Native Plant Society. And so it was like magic. We decided that, okay, we're going to have this grant and we're going to put at least one berm in our area that will be dedicated to native plants. And we're hoping through that we would enlighten or educate, or however you want to say it, some of our community members, and hopefully encourage them to do the same in their own landscapes, their home gardens. So we were fortunate that some of your members realized that the road goes both directions, and Vicki and Peggy came all the way to Weiser and visited us in February 23 and made some recommendations about where to put the berm and what kinds of plants we might like to plant there. That for the last several years, we had been doing a little zinnia bed there in that circular area in front of the depot. And they suggested adding some sunflowers, which was really fun the first year. And then the second year, it was kind of like the sunflowers took over. So we're going to have to be a little more assertive with deciding who gets to stay in the zinnia bed, I think, next year. So I wanted to share this picture with you. The one on the left is taken from one of the upstairs windows there in the depot, so you kind of get a feel maybe for the location. So you see we have this grassy, almost like park-like area on the west side of our depot. And UP had donated this caboose to us, and so it sits there just as a, I don't know, just for
Reminder.
yeah, a reminder, I guess. I don't know, just something for people to look at and know that it belongs with the depot. And I just honestly kind of forgot about the area behind it, because you're usually standing on the other side and you just don't really think about that area behind it. And so you can see in the picture on the right what it looked like. I mean, it was just kind of weedy area, it had a lot of gravel. We found later that there was a big anthill there that we had to deal with later. But it would, yeah, it was just not attractive at all. And so I was a little surprised that Vicki and Peggy and then one of the fellows on our committee, they said, no, this is where you need to put the native plants. Well, it was, you know, a large enough area, and it turned out in the end to be a great decision. So I'm thankful that they had the foresight and that they came on that visit, or else I might have stuck it somewhere else and it wouldn't have been as successful. Okay, so I'm not going to read all of this to you, but just share a couple of things from the grant. So what we wanted to do is have something that was more environmentally friendly and low maintenance. We wanted to have native plants and pollinators in our landscape. And probably most importantly, we wanted to educate our community members about the importance of native plants and pollinators. We have taken, my husband and I have taken a couple of field trips with the Moscow group, and we've gone on some of their tours. And, you know, you see quite a few yards that have native plants in them. You don't see a lot of that in Weiser yet, but there are a few people that are starting to either xeriscape or just, you know, plant more native plants. Okay, so you can scan through some of our ideas for a final product there. And for the grant, we had to list what kind of benefits we would have. And to be honest, as I was going through this application, it really was pretty easy to figure out why this was a good project for us. You know, it's a very public space. Like I said, we don't have a lot of historic buildings just because it's a small town. You know, percentage wise, I guess we have a lot of historic buildings, but this is one of the few places that people can come. It's like I said, it's kind of a park-like atmosphere, but it's right downtown. It's on the south end of the main drag through town. As a matter of fact, when I was growing up in high school, we would drag the gut and go down, you know, that circular thing, turn around and go. That was our thing. I don't think they do that anymore. But we do get a lot of people that come on walks and just look at the depot. You know, it's an attractive place. Every time I'm down there pulling weeds or whatever, there's always somebody who comes and stops, takes pictures, or just asks about it. So, you know, it is a good place where the public will get to interact with this project. Okay, so here's our budget. I always kind of feel like, well, I'm going to ask for as much as I can get, but that goes pretty fast, as you know. So we got started. As soon as we got some money, I came to your native plant sale here. That was kind of during COVID, so it was like sort of like the drive-through. We ordered online ahead of time, and then they had it all ready. And so I was kind of excited. I was like, wow, I'm getting 30 some plants, and I wonder if I need to bring the pickup. Yeah. They carried out the box for me, and I was like, did you forget something? Yeah. So we got started. Well, first of all, we decided, you know, that area is not ready for us to plant those plants. So we made the big decision that one of our members would have the job of babysitting the plants over the summer, and we would take the time to get the site ready for plants. Plus, we had heard that fall is a really good time to plant the native plants anyway. So we thought maybe it would be best to wait. So again, we came into some good fortune. We looked at that area, which you saw on the other slide, and said, you know, we need some height here. We need some sculpture going on. So we needed some dirt, right? And Walgreens happened to be building a new building there in town, and it was on pretty good farmland. So we thought, yeah, maybe we could get some of that topsoil. So one of our members drove out. Sure, how much do you need? And he brings like 3 loads and just dumps it for us the same day. It was great. So now we have all of this dirt. Not that easy to rake around. So we had some people volunteer to bring in their I guess front end loader one time and move some of the dirt around for us. And then we had a couple of small tractors come in, either from member donation, and one time we did hire a little bit of work to be done because we felt like we were getting behind schedule. So here's some of our crew. Mostly members here of the Architectural Preservation Committee or the Garden Club. And for those of you who live in small towns or have lived in small towns, you know that usually you are a member of all the committees, right? It's kind of like being on, you know, a small high school and you have to be on all the sports teams or they won't have a team. Well, that's kind of how it works with committees too. So we kind of switch hats here between the Garden Club and the Preservation Committee. So we were raking some of the gravel out of the way and getting the soil spread out. Then we have the good fortune, again, of having several members on either our Garden Club or our Preservation Committee who happen to be really great gardeners. in their own right. So they had a lot of ideas about, how we needed to shape the berm. So they got to that. And then one of our members is a retired geologist. So he spent a lot of time in the desert, working for different mining companies and like testing, is there any gold here or whatever. And so he did a lot of tramping around out in the desert. And he said, I think we need to create like some basalt outcroppings. And I guess I should have mentioned first that we thought, we really should get some rocks to make this look more interesting. And there's a lot of rocks around Weiser. So we talked to one of our rancher friends.
There's some really nice looking rocks in there.
There are. And, we see truckloads leaving Weiser, and sometimes I worry that, are there going to be any rocks left? But I'm assured that, yeah, there are lots of rocks in Weiser. It's not a problem.
Lichen on it.
What's that?
Most of the rocks have lichen
Yes.
and they're attractive rocks.
Yeah. So
There are a lot of
feast your eyes on those. So we have a rancher friend who said, sure, yeah, I'll donate some rocks. And we were, again, really fortunate that he was getting some work done out at his place. So there was a contractor on site who loaded up these rocks for us, drove them to the depot and said, which ones would you like? I mean, we couldn't believe it because, again, I'll back up a little bit, but I talked to one of our friends and was trying to get some advice about, getting rocks put in. And he was like, why do you even want to work on this? You guys have enough work going on in all these other berms. Why don't you put your native plants in some of these other berms and not try to build a new berm here? And do you know how much that the rocks cost and how much the equipment usage is per hour? I mean, it was like thousands of dollars. So we're like, oh, yeah, I think we're going to go for it anyway. So we talked to some, like I said, talked to this rancher, and he was kind enough to donate these rocks. He was like, yeah, I got lots of them. And really, really fortunate that this young man, he said to me, it's no big deal. It's my depot too. So again, it's they're part of the community, and they wanted to donate to this project because it's theirs. It's all of ours. So he brought in this truckload of rocks, and we got to choose which rocks we wanted. And this fellow in the red t-shirt there, that's Dennis. He's the one who was I guess they're both wearing red t-shirts. The bigger guy that's with his back to us in the top picture, he's the one who is a retired geologist. And so he kind of guided the guy. He had this giant forklift that he would just scoop up the rock and just like gently place it down on the dirt. It was pretty amazing. So to me, this was like the best part of our project. This is what really made a difference in the final result for us. So we got the rocks placed, and then again had to, bring our rakes and do some work to get the rocks so that they don't look like, as one of our members said, sky rocks that just drop from the sky and just land there. So we were schooled on how to make the rocks look a little more natural. And now when I'm driving north of town and I look up, at the hillside, like outside of Cambridge there along the canyon, and you see all the basalt outcroppings, I say, oh, this is what Dennis wanted us to create. And so I think it's great. So this is like, as you're looking at the depot, hopefully in some of the shots you'll see, but if you went like straight through there, then you would see through the caboose, then you would see the depot. But if you turned around from this shot, what you see is kind of like a big alley area, it's and backsides of buildings. So it's a little more industrial look on the other side. So we got our plants back from the babysitter and got them planted. And over the winter, I did a little research and found these brochures, as that was part of the grant. I said that I was going to try to get some educational materials and share with people. So I ordered those brochures. If you don't know about this already, you can get those brochures for free from pollinator.org, but you have to pay shipping and handling. And then I found these nice little label holders from the Paw Paw company. It's called Paw Paw because it's in Paw Paw, Michigan. And I thought that they were a pretty good deal. I got 100 of them for $73.50. And that's this guy. I'll just let you pass around if you're interested. So I'm working right now on getting some stickers printed locally to stick on the label holders. So that's what the stickers are going to look like. And I spent probably a ridiculous amount of time making those little icons to go on the stickers, but I thought it would be educational, right, for people. So if anyone notices any mistakes on those, please tell me before I go get them printed. I'm going to hopefully run it by a couple people before I go to the printer with that. So scientific name and common name, and they're all Idaho natives. When we were choosing plants, we made sure of that. And not only Idaho native, but we tried to choose plants that are native, of course, to our region, which is semi-desert for us. So we had a few setbacks, of course, because nothing can go along without some setbacks, right? When we got a dumping of snow, the city cleared the city streets. And like I mentioned earlier, there's just like this huge alley, 100 miles of free space, but they had to, maybe not quite that much, but they had to dump the snow on top of our berm. So that, as you can imagine, that was kind of heartbreaking when we came down and saw that they had dumped a lot of snow onto the berm. And of course, we ended, and they had to drive onto the berm a little bit too. So of course we lost some plants through that, and or they were just buried in all of the muck and mud, and we couldn't find them later. But anyway, well, we had a talk with the mayor and the city council about that. So hopefully it won't happen this winter. And another little setback, as happens with most of us, the weeds get ahead of us, right? And so this was, this new berm, all of a sudden we just sprout out with all of these weeds. I think after a few years of weeding, it'll be much better. But this first year, it was pretty thick with weeds, and they got ahead of us. So we did hire a local woman and her children to do some weeding for us. And again, she said, yeah, I'm not going to charge you, or, she might charge us for just a couple hours because this is my depot too. This is my community. So she felt like they could volunteer some time. Another thing we discovered during the weeding is that there were these ants. I don't know if they're fire ants, red ants of some sort. And our focal plant that we chose for this area, with some encouragement from Peggy or suggestion from Peggy, was an oak leaf sumac. So that's kind of our center of the berm. Well, that's where the ants were. Plus, I discovered that the main branch was broken. So we don't know if a dog ran over it or if kids ran over it or a person stepped on it or whatever. But we thought we were probably going to lose that plant. But I'll tell you that I came to Peggy's to buy a new oak leaf sumac. I had texted with her and she said yes, that she had one. So I took some pictures of the plant that was still there in Weiser. And we noticed that, well, actually, it's not looking too bad, you know, it's kind of moving along and seems to be doing okay. So I asked her advice and she's like, yeah, I think it's going to make it. So we kept our old one and hopefully it's going to hang in there for us. And also we placed those railroad ties around the edges, got them a little higher so that hopefully people won't be so apt to drive up onto the berm. Yeah, things you have to think about. We had a nice thing happen in Weiser. The TVCC, that's Treasure Valley Community College in Ontario, has a garden tour every 2 years, and they hadn't done one in Weiser, so they decided to come to Weiser this past summer, and they decided to include the depot as one of the spots. Well, I have to admit that the president of the foundation is also the treasurer of our committee. That might have had something to do with why we were chosen. And that's all of his fun. I don't know if you can see it very well in the top picture, but he has all this antique garden seed packets and things like that. And he had those on display. But you can see in those photos, those are the interior of the depot and how beautiful the wood is now. And it's a really special spot that people enjoy coming to. And one of our members was outside and kind of guided the participants as they visited. It's sort of like an open house style thing, you know, where people just visit. I think there were 9 different gardens for the day. And then he would answer questions about our native plants, the very small native plants at the time. So we were just pleasantly surprised because one of our members who's kind of in charge of the sprinkler system for the rest of our plants hooked up a drip line, but I don't know, somehow we didn't communicate with each other and he never got it going. So we just kept watering by hand and we thought, well, this isn't going to be enough really, but it was. I mean, we were just shocked at how big our plants got in just a couple months. So I guess we gave them enough of a good start and they have really taken off. Most of them, some of them take longer, I understand. So I was talking to Peggy about the arrowleaf balsam root and she was showing me some in her greenhouse and I was like, there aren't any plants there. They're dormant. Okay. So hopefully I haven't accidentally gotten rid of any. Okay, so yeah, just a few shots of the growth and how the berm is really shaping up. And we just purchased a few more this last month to kind of replace some of those that we lost because of the snow and a few other things, just natural attrition, I guess. Just got those planted. And that's the sumac on the left. It's kind of hard to tell, but I'm looking from the top down. If you look really hard, you could see the branch that's broken there. So another setback, we rent the depot to a church group and I guess there are a lot of kids in the group and they think the berm is like a great place to play. So when Steve and I went down to plant those plants that we just got from Peggy, I started looking in the berm and there were like all these crab apples all over it. And I'm thinking, we don't have a crabapple tree. Well, they were having a crabapple fight and yeah, but some other people I'd walked by from our garden club and had witnessed all of the stuff that was going on, all these shenanigans. And I know it's kind of a natural thing for kids, looks like a great place to play, but we don't like the idea that they're being kind of destructive too. They're hanging from the trees and breaking branches and things like that. So we'll talk with the group about our expectations for the supervision if they want to continue to rent the building. So hopefully that's taken care of. But in the meantime, Steve and I put up this beautiful fence to hopefully discourage people from going in that area, especially since we just have these new plants planted there. And we don't want to keep that ugly fence there forever, but we thought we better leave it for a while till we know that it's going to be safe. Okay, so what are our next steps? Well, I need to get the plant labels finished and in place. We want to do an interpretive sign, kind of a bigger sign for the public to come up and just read about why it's important to have native plants, what kind of benefits they would give to their own gardens and why we need to have them in our community. We're doing some exterior signage at the depot just to tell about the depot. So I was kind of waiting to see what the style or design would be for those, but we were hoping to get a grant on that and we didn't get the grant. So I think I'm just going to go ahead and get our sign and then they can match our design, I guess. So yeah, we'll just continue to keep working on it and growing it and sharing with the community. And that's it. I just want to say again, thank you to the Native Plant Society and to all of the individuals in particular for planting this seed. Sorry for the pun, but it maybe isn't a big deal to some of you, but this is kind of a big deal to us. It's and Weiser people will notice it and it will make a difference to a lot of people. So thank you.